Yeah, welcome everyone. We're going to wait just a couple moments here as our room fills up, and then we'll get started. All right, well, looks we've got a good crowd here. So let's get started with our session today. Good morning. My name is Mark Shields. I work with Business Link on our Edmonton Regional Innovation Network project as the program manager there. And I'm really happy to have you all joining us for our webinar today. I'd like to start out with a land acknowledgement. So we want to acknowledge that in the province of Alberta, we are situated on the traditional territories of treaties 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10, ancestral homeland of diverse First Nations groups, Métis, and Indigenous people whose ancestors have walked this land since time immemorial, and whose histories, languages, and cultures continue to influence our vibrant community. We pay respects to the Indigenous people of this land, past, present, and future, while recognizing their cultural heritage, beliefs, and the relationship to the land on which we reside. So thank you all again for joining us for our webinar today. We're very happy to have Holly Blair of Engineering Possibilities joining us for part 3 of our Lean Fundamentals series, How to Take Your Business to the Next Level Now. If you'd like to ask a question, we are going to have a question period at the end of the session today. Do feel free to populate the chat or the Q&A with your questions along the way, but just note that they'll be addressed later on, or just jot them down to yourself. That works as well, and we'll give you that opportunity a little later. Feel free to use the chat as well, just for discussion purposes. If you have thoughts, experiences that are relevant to the conversation that Holly's sharing, please go ahead and use it for that. We want you to know that slides will not be emailed out, but you will be able to access a recording of this presentation on our website, businesslink.ca. And the information in this session is for general knowledge. It should not be taken as professional advice. And so with that all out of the way, it's my pleasure to welcome our presenter, Holly, today. Take it away, Holly.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. And I'm just going to share my slides here so you all can see what I can see. So it is great to be with you all this morning. Thank you for attending, and welcome to part 3 of the Lean Mean Business Machine. It's a webinar series I've been leading this fall in partnership with Business Link. And today's topic is called Lean Fundamentals, how to take your business to the next level now. So I'm going to cover what we are going to talk about today. So the first thing will be an overview of the Lean Mean Business Machine webinar series, which is I've been leading on Zoom here for over the fall. You can find all 3 recordings, including this one, will be up there shortly on the Business Link website under resources. Then I'm going to cover the third of 3 common symptoms of process problems that are commonly experienced by business owners, and then get into what exactly is Lean Six Sigma. I know it can sound like a complex topic or kind of above people, but I promise it's way simpler than it sounds. And then today we've got a whole slew of lean process improvement tools that I want to touch on. There's 7, 8 of them right there. And then we'll cover about how to actually use these tools in your business. Now, with that, with the quantity of content that I packed into today's session, there is literally like 2 or 3 slides about each topic, and each topic really I could lead an entire webinar about. So you may have the experience that you're like this poor fellow here who just ends up trying to have a drink from the fire hose, and it does not go that well. So take this with like a grain of salt. Like this is just going to give you a high level overview, get you introduced to these concepts. And if you want to actually take a dive into them and use them, I'm looking at creating some more webinars into next year about specifically these topics and how to use them in your business. And you can also reach out. I'll have a link to schedule a discovery call with me It's a complimentary 30-minute session where we can actually look at what tools would make the biggest difference in your business. So a little bit about myself before we jump in here. So I'm a chemical engineer. I went to Queen's University, graduated in 2007, and then I was just talking to Mark, sharing with him. It was 2007. I had an engineering degree. It was a great time to move to Alberta, and 14 years later, I never went back. But I've worked in chemical processing. I worked in a fertilizer manufacturing plant for about 10 years. I've also got some experience in healthcare, oil and gas, and various business process optimization. And I kind of quit engineering about 5-6 years ago, like the real math part of engineering. And I created my company, Engineering Possibilities, about 3 years ago, with the intention to make a difference for organizations with the real power of Lean Six Sigma. I'm a certified Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt. There's various levels of it's kind of like karate, how they go up in from yellow belt, white, yellow, green belt, black belt, and then master black belt. And I'm certified as an executive coach and in change management. I love downhill skiing, Formula One racing, and I've got myself a 2-year-old puppy at home. He's almost not a puppy, but he's a Cocker Spaniel and he loves barking. So that's a little bit about myself. Now, for each of you here, I want to ensure that you're getting the most value as possible. So in order to do that, I'd like for you to listen from a real issue that's happening right now in your business. Now, this should be either an existing problem in some existing process. Maybe it's a new challenge that came about as a result of the pandemic. And ultimately, it should be a process that you're open to seeing something new about. So if you'd like to drop in the chat about what process you're looking at, and kind of what area of your business you're focusing on, that'd be great to get a few people up on the court here and see what you're looking at. So I'll give you a moment to do that. What area of your business are you looking at? Charity's got the bidding cycle, we got that. Any others? If you're just here for general knowledge, that's also great. You can just put that in there as well. Exposure of the business, okay, awesome. All right. So the promise of the Lean Mean webinar series is that you will leave this webinar with new actions to elevate the performance of your business operations that you'll be able to put into practice immediately. And I see lots more, opportunities and areas of your business popping up here in the chat. So thank you, everyone. So 3 common symptoms of process problems. How you know that your business needs lean. I covered the first 2 in the first and second session I've led this fall. The first one was running fast and going nowhere. That's like when you just are in your business and you're so busy doing your business, you don't really take the time to get into those second quartile, not urgent, but very important activities to actually grow your business and create that future and then live into it. So that was one common symptom of when you need lean, is when you're just overwhelmed and you're just so busy you don't even know what to do next. Second one, firefighting. And again, I love this picture because it looks just so overwhelming. And I hope that no one here actually has any sort of work day that actually looks like this poor person here who's standing in front of a massive fire and doesn't even look like they have water coming out of their hose. But firefighting can be a real challenge for businesses because there's the person who puts out the fire, like the proverbial fires, they typically get rewarded for that behavior and they save the day and they're the hero. And that works until it doesn't. When it becomes just how you do business, it is not the most effective way to keep growing. So with that, the third of 3 common process problems, which is looking for answers in all the wrong places. Now this one has to do with the old adage of looking for your keys where the light is instead of where you actually dropped them. So human beings love to fix things. When we see a problem, we just go at it. We want to fix it. We want to deal with it. We want to make it better. But a common trap that we can fall into is that we don't always see past what's immediately obvious. So we'll go at a process with the intention to improve it, but if we don't have a good understanding of Lean Six Sigma, then some of our actions are things focused on stuff like how to make the line run faster, or I need to add more people, or I need to get this new piece of software to automate the process. These are all well-intentioned actions, but they often don't have the impact we're looking for because it has the effect of looking for your keys where the light is instead of where you dropped them. So we react and we apply Band-Aid solutions instead of dealing with the real source of process problems. I just see that there's a Y missing there in apply. So I'll correct that going forward. But really it's the experience of just trying to fix something, patch it together, get it going, have it work well enough, but not actually get behind the systemic issues that are actually impacting your operations, your people, and actually dealing with the real root causes of process problems. So what exactly is Lean Six Sigma? I promised you it was simple. So again, the slide has some big words on it, but it's still very simple. Lean's a continuous improvement methodology, which means it's a collection of tools and approaches, strategies that are focused on increasing your value to your customers, eliminating process waste, and streamlining your operations. So Lean is about making things simple and streamlining, removing waste out of the process, getting things to run as smoothly as possible. And then Six Sigma. Six Sigma is more of a statistical data analysis method of process improvement. And Six Sigma has the effect of looking to reduce variation in your processes and eliminate defects. So the two of them together, Lean is about making things simple and flow, and Six Sigma is about making the same thing come out of the end of the process the same way every time. So when you marry the two of them together, you can get this great combination of statistical-based data analysis, on the court, on the floor, involving people approach to really lean process improvement. So Lean Six Sigma, again, is a process improvement methodology that's there to reduce variation in processes and eliminate waste. It's a set of tools. There's probably over 50 different lean tools that you can use to streamline processes and elevate your efficiency and effectiveness. It came out of Japan following World War II, so it's been around for some time. And it really originated in the Japanese automotive manufacturing industry with Toyota. And it's now, it spans all over the world now. It's not just in Japan. And it's not just in manufacturing. It's a common myth about lean, is that it only works in manufacturing settings. When in reality, you can apply it to any process, from things as simple as, maybe it's not so simple, but getting kids ready for school in the morning, getting yourself to work in the morning, right through to the most complex manufacturing or service-based process in the largest organizations. So manufacturing, healthcare, service businesses, chemical processes, fabrication shops, the food and beverage industry. There's really like no shortage of applications of lean, which is a part of the problem in that it applies to everything, but there's not always a common understanding in all of those industries about what's possible. So that's really what my intention is with this webinar today, is to introduce you all to these concepts and have you exposed to them so you can start to see what's possible. So as I said, we've got the fire hose method of learning here today with all of these different Lean Six Sigma tools and methods. So what I'm going to cover here, I've got a couple of slides about each of the topics. And if you have any questions as we go through here, if you just want to jot them down on a piece of paper beside you or a Word document or whatever you have, we'll take some time at the end of the session to actually go through and answer those questions, and we can bring back to a specific topic and I can bring that slide back up if that's needed. So the first Lean concept is called process map. And you may have heard about this before because it's a pretty common method of documenting business processes that's used in many industries. And the benefits of using this tool are great. So you actually have the written out, drawn out procedures for how your process actually works. So they make great training and onboarding documents and structures. They give you a common understanding of how long process steps are actually meant to take. So you can start to standardize on how long things are meant to take versus how long they actually take, and getting people up to speed to bringing that standard work process. Once you've got it all laid out, you've then got the foundation for identifying improvement opportunities. You have something you can come back to and look at. It's common to print it out on a giant piece of paper and stick it up on the wall in the office. There's the ability then to define and create metrics for how to monitor your process. You can invent some measures on how your process is doing, and then you can track those over time to track progress rather. It also allows you to identify and eliminate process waste and process bottlenecks in the process. And I have some more slides about how to actually go after those bottlenecks and waste. And ultimately, you're looking to bring clarity and direction to your business processes so that everyone who's involved actually is clear about what you're doing, how you're doing it, and when it's happening. So process mapping is a very foundational tool for process improvement. It's one of the first things I do with my clients is to map out what they're doing. And I actually want to map out what's actually happening versus how they think it happens or how it's supposed to happen, because you can find some really juicy details in there about how things actually happen in reality. So there's several types of process maps, and I've got the 4 major types here on the screen, and then I've got a slide for each of them. So there's basic flowcharts that show you the start to finish, all of the possible pathways through the process. Then we have what's called a SIPOC, which is a high-level overview of a process with the 5 to 7 process steps identified. Then swim lane maps. These are great for identifying handoffs and transfers of information or equipment or the actual product through an organization and ultimately getting to your customer. And then the 4th one is called a value stream map, which maps out the flow of value through an organization. So I've got a slide for each one. So the first one is called SIPOC. And a SIPOC is a visual tool for documenting your processes. It's something that's great to do early on, very beginning stages of a project, because it does give you such a high level understanding of your process. So SIPOC is an acronym. It stands for suppliers, inputs, process, outputs, and customers. And then you start to build out your map from there. So you build them from the middle out, and you start with the highest level process steps. So this one might be a little bit tiny here on the screen, but it's a process for how to make coffee, starting from roasting the coffee beans, grinding the coffee, brewing coffee, serving it, and ultimately drinking the coffee. So you build these maps from the middle, and then you work your way out. From there, you identify the inputs to each process, and then who supplies each of those inputs. So for example here, for the roasting the coffee beans process, the inputs are having green coffee beans, and you need a coffee roaster. And the supplier would be whoever you get your beans from, your supplier of coffee beans. And you actually build this out row by row, and you can actually then start to see the interconnections and the dependencies of different people and different inputs and outputs in the process. So after you've got the suppliers and inputs identified, you go to the other side and you get the outputs and the customers. So you go from coffee beans out to drinking the coffee, and you leave yourself with a happy customer who's got their caffeine fix. And again, this is a really simple example, kind of a fun little example, but you can use this for many complex processes, and it starts to make a real powerful tool for getting a high-level overview that you can share with people who want to learn about how the process is meant to work. The basic flowcharts. This is a type of flowchart that people are typically quite familiar with. You've built these through school and probably in your work in different industries. But it gives you all possible pathways for how to get through a process from A to B. You get to capture the decision points, which are typically that diamond shape, and then you can get rework loops and start to figure out where things are going wrong or different pathways that people can take. So this one's a fun little example too about getting out of bed in the morning. How many times you're going to hit snooze on your rework loop before you ultimately decide to get out of bed. Then we have swim lanes. So swim lanes are the most commonly used process map. Sometimes they're called a cross-functional diagram as well. And ultimately, it really works to identify all of the groups of people or the individuals or departments, depending on the scale, everyone who's involved in the process. And you can actually watch and see the information flow through people. You can see the different handoffs between groups. And all of the process steps, how they're interconnected. Sometimes you can even capture some of these parallel processes that happen, and then the two items meet up at a certain point in the process. So these are very useful for any process that has a lot of people involved and a lot of handoffs. So if you build these typically for my clients, I'll build them from whatever their product or service is that they're developing. We'll start from when your client makes a request through to actually delivering the service or the product to your customer and all the things that happen in between. And there are lots of different software applications available online. I like to use Visio just because it's a Microsoft product, it works well. But there you can do different things on Miro and various web pages and applications that allow you to map these online and then share them. Value stream maps. So this is like a next level of process maps. These are a little bit more in-depth, detailed. We don't build these immediately for clients, but they are incredibly valuable for anyone who takes the time to invest in developing them. So this one's tiny, it's a little overwhelming. I am not expecting you to read any of those tiny, I can hardly see them on my screen, any of the tiny fonts here on the screen, but just to get an overall picture of what they look like is the intention. So value stream mapping is mapping the value to your customer as that value flows through from your suppliers, through your production process, out to your customer. So there's some standard symbols and the way the maps typically look. The blue boxes across the middle of the screen, those are the process steps of the production. It's some sort of plastic production process here that this thing is modeling. So each of those process steps takes a certain amount of time. That's represented at the bottom with the up and down sort of castle-like depiction at the bottom. It shows you the uptime and the wait time. The uptime while the process is actually moving forward, and then the wait time to move to the next process step. The green boxes below, they typically give you some information about how the process works, how many people are involved, the production rate, the design rate, changeover time if you need to set up some equipment, anything like that. The triangles in between the blue process steps, those are the inventory or the work in progress that's waiting to move to the next step. And then the whole upper section of this diagram is the flow of information. So the green box at the top is like your ERP system, whether that's SAP or whatever. And it feeds out information from the weekly production schedule to each of the processing steps, the daily production schedule, and then it also handles the ordering and delivery of products. So when you actually build one of these for a functioning process or a functioning company, you can get a lot of information in a short amount of time and have a great tool for identifying opportunities and to streamline your operations and optimize value. So that's process mapping in a nutshell. The next tool is called spaghetti diagrams. And these really do look like the plate of spaghetti that's on the right-hand side here. So this is a drawing that you can make that gives you a physical representation of the flow of people or materials moving through the activities of a process. So this is a great tool for capturing how much waste is present in your process, specifically transportation, motion, and weighting. So it's a really cool visual tool to be able to identify walking patterns, long transportation distances in your process, and repetitive tasks. So how you make one is you get a map, and you can like if you've got a facility, you could get a copy of the blueprint of the layout, or you can kind of draw one up roughly to scale. And then you sit there and you watch people move through the process as they're performing their jobs. And then you draw where they walk. You can use different colors for people or materials. And these can be very impactful diagrams. I did one for a client in Edmonton last year, and we mapped out the flow. It was a plastic production facility, and they would make rolls of plastic and then put them on pallets and then drive them around with forklifts. So I mapped the forklifts transportation pathways here using a spaghetti diagram. And they were in the process of getting funding approved to build a new warehouse that was going to be a lot closer than their current setup, which was to drive the pallets all the way to, like, they called it the back 40, pick it up in the production plant, drive it around outside, around the corner, and dump it out by the fence line, waiting to be picked up by their client whenever that happened. And the problem with that is that it was in Edmonton, so it gets cold and it snows, and the forklifts don't go so well. To be able to map to draw out where their forklifts were going, we actually mapped out that in the course of a year, their forklifts were driving the equivalent of driving from Edmonton to Denver on a forklift. That's how far they drove around on the plant. And then from there, we were able to just make some additional justifications that got their warehouse approved so that they cut down the distance the forklifts were traveling significantly. So then not only did they save the time, they also saved the wear and tear on the forklift, stopping driving around in the back 40 in the winter in Edmonton. So you can, and I've done this in hospitals, different units in the hospital to optimize how things are set up and laid out so that people are most effective as they can be. Then another type of spaghetti map is called a handoff map. And this one is very similar, except instead of watching people move through a process, this maps the flow of materials and information through a process. So this one, you draw a circle, and then for every person or department that your information flows to, you give them a dot around the circle. And then you start at the beginning of the process and you draw lines connecting who's using what piece of information when. And this one can be again, probably too small to see, but it was a very insightful one. This is from a client of mine that was an app. It was a tech company, and they had an app providing a service to their client that they advertised as like one-stop shop. You just check in once and then we take care of everything. It was about a moving service. They would reconnect all of your utilities and phone and everything at your new house. Now the problem, the client is actually this one up here at the top. And for a one-stop shop operation, they were going back to their client an awful lot of times. So they weren't figuring out why people weren't recommending them to their friends. So when they got this was what they were actually doing versus what they were saying, calling themselves one-stop shop. They then streamlined their entire operation and they cut that down to only 3 points of contact to the client. So lots of opportunity with these. Next topic, again, fire hose drinking today. Next one is called value analysis. So when you map out your process, there are all the various process steps involved in it. And then you can classify each step as being value added or non-value added. So value added are things your customer wants to pay for, things that actually transform and change the fit, form, or function of the person or the thing that's moving through your process. So if you're a manufacturing facility, it's every process step that adds value to your product that you ultimately are going to sell. And then your non-value added activities are very simply everything else. So they're waiting for things, they're searching for materials, anything that consumes time and resources, but it doesn't actually satisfy your customer demands and requirements. And the scary part is that people don't realize that business processes typically contain up to 90% waste. 90%. Like most of what we do does not add value. And there's the reality of that. And then there's what actions we can take to minimize the non-value added wasteful activities and then optimize our process for value. So to help us with that, there's this tool called the 8 Deadly Wastes, and they form an acronym called downtime. And if you want to learn more about this, you can go back to the first of 3 webinars I led for Business Link. There's a recording on the website. There's the entire webinar about the 8 wastes. So defects, overproduction, waiting, non-utilized talent, transportation, inventory, motion, and excess processing. I also have an ebook about the 8 wastes, how to identify them and eliminate them in your operations. And I have a link for you to go onto my website and you can download it for yourself for attending today's webinar. I've got a free copy of the 8 wastes download. And Mark has the link if you're able to drop that in there. Thanks, Mark. So you can click there, just put in your name and your email address, and you'll get a PDF copy of the 8 Waste ebook emailed right to you. That'll answer all the questions you have about waste. Next topic is called SMED. And SMED is an acronym again for this. Is called Single Minute Exchange of Dies. And it's about quick changeovers. So there's lots of processes that have changeover opportunities in them where you're going to change from one process to another process, constructing one project to another project, building one process to another. So the intention of SMED is to convert as many changeover steps as there are from the time production stops to when it starts up again. You want to move as many of those out of that period of time as possible so that you can streamline and move things through as fast as possible. So lots of applications for SMED in businesses, changing product lines, startup and shutdown equipment procedures, staging and setup, and lots of applications in the production and assembly processes. So with that, I have a video to share. And it says I just need to reshare my screen here. So I get that up. So this is a little video here about Formula One pit stops. And Formula One has really taken on, really adopted SMED as a way of operating in the pit stop process. So in the pit stops, the car comes in from the racetrack, they got to change the tires. In this video, they also do refueling, and then they go back out. and you can win and lose races in the pits. So this has become a critical step of any successful Formula One team. So this video, which is a couple minutes long, it shows you the evolution of pit stops from the 1950s until recently, and the amount of time and the effort that's gone into implementing the SMED idea, the quick changeovers in the process of Formula One pit stops.
But Holland comes in for a pit stop. Time to refuel and change tires. Lou Moore himself changes the tires. Only 4 crew members, including the driver, are allowed to work on the car. It's a tense time. Holland stays in his seat, anxious to get away. Let's watch. Tires are changed at last. A crewman polishes the windshield as Holland moves away just 67 seconds after he stopped.
So a little bit faster there as we move through the evolution of pit stops there. So that's not even as fast as they've actually gone either. They the recent record is from 2019 at the Spanish Grand Prix with Max Verstappen's car with Red Bull Racing, and they changed all 4 tires in 1.82 seconds. All right, and I just want to check, just working off of my one laptop today, no external screens. Can you see the screen again with the presentation?
Yep, it's showing up all.
All right, great, thank you, Mark. All right, so how to go about SMED quick changeover. 4 steps. First, you want to identify the sequence and how long each of your process steps take. You've got before SMED, you've got a certain number of time that takes to complete all the steps. Then you want to classify those as internal activities or external activities. Internal activities have to happen while, for example, the car is stopped or while the process is down. And then the external activities are things that you could do ahead of time so that they're just there ready to go. Then your changeover time reduces. Next, you look at what you can eliminate, reducing your changeover time even more. What process steps are not actually value added? What are we only doing because there's some folklore or something about our process of how it's supposed to work, but we don't actually have a reason for why we're doing it that way anymore. So what activities can we actually physically remove or do at a different time? And then finally, of the remaining steps, you want to streamline those. Figure out ways you can do things concurrently, like they do all 4 wheels at once now instead of just one at a time. So that reduces your changeover time even more. So with this tool, you can do I've seen some very miraculous type activities, some changeovers that would take an hour, get down to a matter of minutes. Formula One stop several minutes to just 1.82 seconds. So there is a ton of opportunity if you have any sort of changeover process in your business that you want to optimize and streamline, you definitely want to get to me and we can take a look together at what's possible. Next tool is called 5S. You may have heard of this before. It's a way of organizing workplaces and areas to really have what you need available when you need it. So it's the 5 S's are sort, straighten, shine, standardize, and sustain. So first, sort, you get rid of anything that does not belong. And you only have remaining what's actually needed for the process. Straighten is organizing what's left so that it's well organized and everything is accessible. Shine is clean it all up, like clean the floor, clean the surfaces, clean the walls, anything, just make it shine. And then standardize is how do we make sure that everyone is doing the same thing the same way as we're using the different materials and that everything is organized in the standard way. And then the 5th S is about sustain, how to maintain those gains that you've implemented, continuously work to improve. So there's typically audit processes that happen about once a month after you've 5S'd a certain area of your business. Now, why 5S? Because there's workplaces that actually look like this. And some of my photos here are a little bit extreme. I'll be responsible for that. But how would you ever find anything in this shed? You wouldn't. Or this desk drawer. We got a bunch of different tools, old gloves in there. We're not even sure what some of those things wrapped up in plastic are. Like you open the drawer, you cannot quickly find what you need. I like this one in particular. This is a warehouse from maybe the warehouse from hell here. It looks like there's some very precariously stacked items in here. And I really appreciate the photographer's perspective here of getting right down in the dumpster and then having that in the background. So if you get any kind of warehouse in your process and it resembles this whatsoever, you want to get to me. Or this guy, this person's desk. This one's what I would call a hoarder because they're holding on to some very old equipment, computer equipment here. Floppy disk drives. I don't even know where you would find something to read that with anymore. But if you've got any old collection of stuff that you just can't figure out what to do with, and you've got a place that looks like this, you cannot work here in an effective manner. Or you could use 5S and have your warehouse look like this one with everything in totes, all nicely organized with a clear aisle, all of your tools organized, and a shadow board layout, and a little Kanban system there for your little materials. So 5S takes you from those imminent disasters to nice and clean and organized, which then enables productivity and allows people to have access to what they need to do their jobs. Next topic, again, lots of fire hose drinking today. Cell design. Cell design is a process of organizing your production area into cells so that you can have everything you need to complete your job in one small space. So you can go from the before picture where your production process has you moving all across different areas of your building to complete the process, or you can organize it into cells and have all 7 process steps right there available in one space. So with this application, you typically have shorter changeover times for your process, way better use of space, so you don't need as large of a footprint, higher productivity, faster lead times, and better communication and teamwork within the people who are working in the processes. Now, if you've ever had surgery or been around any sort of process in a hospital, you'll notice that there's a tray with all of the tools that they're going to need. The surgeons don't go searching for scalpels when it's time to use one. They have everything they need and it's all right there. So this goes to the concept of point of use tools and materials with cell design. So this reduces waste, like motion, transportation, and waiting. You don't have to search for tools that you need when you need it. You have everything you need right there. So it enables continuous production and flow of your process. Couple of examples here, coffee station, everything you would need to make coffee right there. Top right here, they have these in the airports. I know they have them in the, I haven't been through the Edmonton airport in a while, but in Calgary, they have it in the new terminal. They have it at Pearson in Toronto as well. And it's these cells where at the security line, instead of waiting one by one, so you've got your business traveler who's very efficient, you got your mom who's traveling with 3 of her kids, maybe you have an elderly couple all moving through the line. And if you do it one by one, you have to wait for each person to take whatever time they need. Versus this system, there's 4 different cells where you can unload all of your stuff to go through the security system. And if you're the business traveler, you can whip your laptop out, put your carry-on in there and scoot through really fast. And it gives the seniors and it gives the mom with their 3 kids the actual space and time to do what they need to do to get themselves through security without feeling like they're holding up the line. So I was very happy when I saw these at different airports, started to come in a few years ago. And then the bottom cartoon picture, it looks like they're making some sort of iPad or something. And they've got nice small footprint design there. There's one person there manning the machine, and it puts it right into boxes ready to go out and to ship to their customer. Next topic is called Poka-Yoke, which is a Japanese word for mistake proofing. Poka-Yoke is all about using mechanisms or devices that prevent predictable mistakes from happening, or it makes the mistake impossible to occur. So if you eliminate the source of the error, then it can't go wrong. So some examples of Poka-Yoke applications are kill switches on machinery, overflow sensors, so things don't overfill and cause floods, having incompatible plugins, like the difference between North America and Europe. You can't use the same plugin because you've got different voltages. Or system interlocks to make sure that a process shuts down safely. Some examples from real life here. Your microwave will not work if the door is open. If the door is open, it will not start up. Garage door openers, they typically have the sensor at the bottom to prevent animals or small children from getting squished under the door as it's going down. Gas tanks, the diesel fuel nozzles are slightly larger diameter than the gasoline ones. So it makes it quite difficult, not quite impossible. I think you can jam it in there. It's also bright yellow. So it's designed for you to realize that you should not be putting the diesel into your gasoline engine, and that the more difficult it makes it, the more opportunity there is for you to notice that it's not quite right. And then last, there is an overflow sensor for a bathtub, making sure that if you turn that on and walk away, that you don't now have a flood. So a few common examples in real life, and you can take those and apply them in your business. Getting through the end here, we've got Kanban. Kanban is another Japanese word, and it's a signal. So it's like a card or a board that identifies a need for action in a process. So you can use Kanbans for inventory, to identify something that's time to move to the next step or time to collect a finished product. These reduce your inventory levels down to a kind of a not too much, not too little, but just right kind of level. It's really connected to your customer demand. So you're very well aligned to your production process, to your customer demand. It minimizes storage. There's no storage in your production area, and it also reduces obsolete inventory, and it helps you to prevent overproduction, which then you have to store until someone's ready to buy your product. So examples here, minimum inventory alerts. So an automated system that will tell you, hey, we're running low. Maybe it's time to order some. You can even automate the inventory reorder points depending on the type of system you're using. The gas light on your car. I had this brainwave while I was making these slides that when the light goes on in my gas tank in my car, that's time to pull over and get some gas soon. And different visual boards that visually give you an overview of a process and tell you what the status of your process is. So that's all the content I had today. So from here, unleashing the power of lean in your business. So as you can probably hear, there is just like a whole world of opportunity in applications of lean. And so some of the things I offer through my consulting company, Engineering Possibilities, include business assessments to actually get where you currently stand and where your opportunities are. I have a lean entrepreneur program, just because I like entrepreneurs, and you don't really have the 4 or 5 digit budgets for lean process improvements. It's a program that's actually designed for you in mind, at a lower price that actually enables what you're up to. I've got lean consulting and coaching. I have a program for creating business playbooks, which is having all of your information in one spot. The Yellow Belts online course, if you're interested in learning more about how these tools actually work, there's an online training program to get them more in depth than I covered today. And then a very fun one that I'm launching this year, this coming year, is it's called Chaos Air. It's a Lego simulation exercise for a process that really does not work. And it's designed to have you and your teams discover the applications of lean in the Lego airplane production process, and then use those in your own business. So with that, I will offer you all a complimentary 30-minute discovery call with me to look at what's possible with lean in your business. And we've got a link that Mark can drop in the chat for that. And again, make sure you get to that other link there higher up in the chat to get your free copy of the 8 Ways ebook. So with that, we have a few minutes for questions here.
Yeah, thanks so much, Holly. This is just a ton of excellent information and really concisely delivered, so very well done. A couple of questions that did come in the chat as you were going along. So kind of early on with the process mapping, just a bit of a rundown of some of the free tools or where someone can look. I think you mentioned using Visio. Is there anything else that comes to your mind that they should check out with regard to tools?
Microsoft Visio is actually quite reasonably priced. I think it's like $19 a month, so it's not prohibitively expensive, and it gives you all the tools you need there. There's other programs you can Google. There's Miro online, which you can get a free account for. They have process mapping capabilities. Lucid Chart is another good one. I don't know. I think they probably have a free version. But there's if you Google it, there's lots of opportunities, and don't be too afraid of the Microsoft one because it works really well and it's priced appropriately.
That's great. Thanks,
I'm not
Holly.
selling anything from Microsoft, but it's a good tool.
And I see someone, it says anonymous attendee says they have 2 questions. If you can just, oh, here we go. They've come up. So we'll get to those in just a moment. I have one other one from earlier in the chat. So when you showed the handoff map or the handoff process, I was just asked, is tracking direction important there? If you can recall or maybe respond to that. Yeah,
direction, like the flow of information from one to the other, or
the way that, so I'm kind of adding my own interpretation now, but it seemed like there was just kind of that straight line. Maybe what they were kind of getting at is some kind of overlay between that and the spaghetti one of sort of seeing the amount of travel between the points. Is that necessary? Does that make sense?
Well, if it's a physical distance, you'd want to map that out with a spaghetti diagram with the physical layout. And you can also put arrows on them as well, or have different colors to identify inputs versus outputs of information. So it's kind of I have to get into the details of that request to get to how you could really optimize it.
Sure, well, that sounds good. So then the question from our anonymous attendee there is, with our couple minutes remaining, how would you apply this in a service business? I mean, you had said right at the start there, like it gets kind of pigeonholed into manufacturing, but it can be applied more broadly. So do you have kind of an example from that you could pull up for any of the tools you use that would involve a service business?
Yeah, totally. I've done a few projects for clients. I did one with a HR consultant who had various services for companies, and it was all business processes. So There's all of the pre-work that goes into you delivering your service. There's the actual delivery of your service, and then there's all the follow-up actions. So you kind of treat your service as the thing that you're producing in your process, and then you map it out accordingly. So all the pre-work, all the getting ready for delivering your service, collecting information from clients, and then actually delivering it. Sometimes service involves a delivery component, which is a great opportunity for minimizing transportation and waiting wastes, so that there's lots of opportunity there.
Yeah, anywhere there's an activity, I suppose, right? If
Yeah.
there's an activity taking place, you can apply.
Yeah, like I've mapped out, one of my girlfriends, I mapped out how to get her kids ready for school more efficiently in the morning.
That's fantastic. Well, and that kind of leads to a question that I've got, again, just with the time remaining, that maybe could be helpful for the crowd here, which is, I wonder how, or if you've encountered in your work with clients on this, sort of still that like habit of seeing what you want to see. So maybe you undertake I want to analyze my processes, but aren't quite ready to sort of admit that there could be failings there, and still just want to see the good and kind of put blinders on the bad. Do you encounter that as a significant issue? And if not, don't worry about it. But if so, like, what are some ways that people can combat that mentality?
Yeah. Well, one of the things about Lean is that we get very real in working with my clients. So we'll actually get how your process is actually working. And when we start to do that, and we start to discover process waste, it is kind of like opening a can of worms, and you can find stuff that you would really rather not have found. Like things that you might take personally, that you're like, that is just not what I'm committed to, and it's what's happening. So I really work with people to take that personal responsibility for what's working and not working in your process. Ultimately, like driving back to the commitment of why you created your business in the first place, and then aligning your systems and processes to deliver on what your promise is for your customers.
Oh, that's great. Good summary. All right. Well, we don't have any more questions, it looks like, and we've gotten right almost to the moment of the top of the hour here. So great. I think I can start to wrap things up just by once again thanking you very much, Holly, for this presentation and your whole series on Lean Business Machine, which has been excellent. If you would like to contact us here at BusinessLink, you can reach us at askus@businesslink.ca. We have our 1-800 number, 1-800-272-9675. We can certainly provide some one-on-one advice, connect with one of our strategists, which is an excellent way to start moving your business forward. Sign up for our newsletter, connect on social media. You can review the recorded webinars. I put that link in the chat as well. And absolutely reach out to Holly for that really generous complimentary meeting. So make sure you click on that link here and open that up in your browser to take advantage of that. And that's very generous. Thank you, Holly. Finally, you'll receive an email from us following this webinar with an online survey. If you can take 5 minutes to fill that out, we would really appreciate it. It helps us with our planning process, I suppose you could say, here over at BusinessLink for our webinars and such. So yeah, that's about it. So thanks one more time, Holly, for taking your time to share this with our clients, and it's really great information.
Absolutely. You're welcome. All right. Have a great day, everyone.
Yes.